Hello, hello. How's it going? It's Robert Jordan from Cat Full of Ghost Electronics, and I wanted to show off King Pugalist, which is a new piece of software that I've got in the works. You can see the window open over here. Can have a quick sip of coffee. So, if you want to make cool, glitched out, weird, messed up images like this, or this, or this one, things like this, then you're going to want to hang around and see what this software can do. Crazy easy to use. You just drag in an image. Pew! There's our image. Or you can hit load image. So once we've got an image in here, we've got all the kind of usual controls you might expect. You know, we got our brightnesses, contrasts. You can hue rotate the image. You can up the saturation. And sharpness. And so these sliders go pretty hard, and that is deliberately. So you can really kind of push an image into a nice, uncomfortable sort of place. But after we've done that, after we've done these basic kind of manipulations, is where the fun stuff comes in. We've got inverts, we've got bit shifting. I'll just reset the filter actually to make it more obvious what's happening. So this shifts, this bit shifts all the pixels with wraparound in one direction and then in the other. You can see you pretty quickly start getting pretty whacked out stuff, especially if it's a low quality JPEG. We've got posterization by controlling the number of colors. Pew, 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 pew. We've also got glitch noise. So this is an RGB noise where you can control both the density. Someone's using a whippersnipper outside. You control both the density and the intensity. And so that can be really good for adding little glitchy speckles. You can randomize the noise, of course. Pixelization, pixel overflow, which is where you set a luminance threshold above which we start getting colors bit shifted around. Scan lines for that vintage TV look. You can select intensity and how wide they're spaced. We've also got data corruption, which can be randomized per frame as well. We've got channel shift, which gives that classic, you know, stereoscopic chromatic abrasion kind of effect. Digital artifacts, because this is already a pretty compressed JPEG, it's really kind of wreaking havoc on this image. We've also got a thing called filter ringing. So this creates kind of a filter effect on sharp edges. Luma key, I'll come back to that in a second, but all the effects you do can then be Luma keyed over the original image, which gives you a bit more, a bit more possibility. We've also got ringing. So ringing lets you set a luminance threshold, set a direction, and how much you want to smear the pixels by. So I'm going to set it to white because it'll let me see which parts of the image I'm grabbing. Yeah, something like this. We can change which direction it smears. Let's smear down. Let's grab it like that. Might pull that in a tiny bit. You can use the scroll wheel to get slightly more accurate results. Set it back to same, and so now you can see we've got pixels that are being smeared down, and we can control that. So let's just have a little play around and see what kind of fun stuff we can end up with. Yeah, so the smear looks really good on this pixelated landscape. Let's reset everything. Yeah. It's starting to look a bit. What was that? That early Google Deep Dream? Always had these really like fucked up colors like that. Yeah, I wonder when there's going to be a nostalgia return for that. Down. Yeah, I mean that's looking pretty good. The Luma key here, as it's all the way down, no Luma key, the original image, and as you pull it up, you can see we start to key a distorted image over the top. And so I really wanted to include that because that lets you, like, that's really intense and that's very cool, but sometimes you want to dial it back a little bit. You want something a bit, something a bit on the less intense side. Let's knock off the key though so I can see what I'm doing. Pixel overflow. Pull up some noise. Yeah. So it takes a little bit of tweaking because it's very easy to just end up with complete noise. This is cool, but this doesn't look anything like the original image. So let's reset and let's grab something else. Let's get this picture of me. So now maybe let's go to the buttons up the top. We've got zoom in, reset zoom, zoom out. Pew. Load and save presets. So if you end up with something that you like, for example, let's make something cool with this. Yeah, pull that sharpness up. Rotate that hue a bit. Pump up that saturation. Yeah, it's starting to look a bit freaky. Yeah, this is starting to... Let's do that. Ringing. I'm going to pull a... Cool. We got this wacky looking thing. That's pretty cool. Now, if I like that, I can save the image. Cha-ching. Let's put it in results and let's call it Rob. Of course, nothing's stopping you from re-importing that image again and processing it again. But to talk about presets, if you've got a preset you like, you can go save preset. I'm going to put this in the main folder and I'm going to call this Rob Pre, as in Rob preset. Pew! You can see over here, a little JSON file has appeared that contains all our settings. So we reset that. We load a preset. In fact, this preset. Pshaw! And now we've got it. And it's copied all our settings across. That's brilliant. Isn't that great? You can save your cool preset. But the reason that you can save it is actually for another reason. It's because if you look at this thing here, batch process, we can actually process an image sequence. Which means that in a way it's possible to apply these effects to video, assuming a video is an image sequence. So let's look over here. Image sequence, fractal fly. Okay, so I've got about, 250 images here that are some cool 3D Blender animation. How fun. Export it as an image sequence, and I've dragged it in here. Anyway, ignoring that. So we can dial in something we like for this. One slight, oh yeah, cool. Okay, here we go. Got some little tiniest bit of pixel overflow. Tiniest bit of filter ringing. You see that's pulling out the background of this PNG. That's beautiful. I want a tiny bit of, channel shifting. A little bit of digital artifacting. What have we got? Yeah, let's go scan lines. Scan lines can be really good for making other effects kind of pop out. So that's all looking pretty sweet. Let's look at some, ooh. Okay, bit shift by 1, pretty nice. Now let's try to overlay it on the original. You can reverse the key, I didn't mention that. So when it is set normally, you can see that we're introducing the brighter elements from our image that we've manipulated. And if we click the reverse, it's the opposite. So it controls what from the original image is being cut. Ooh. I mean, all right, fuck. Okay, that's pretty cool. All right. Stick on some ringing. Yeah, sweet. Let's do this. Once again, I'm going to set the ringing to black, which is a nice effect on its own. It can help you cut out the inside of an image for like further processing later. One reason I like it is it'll let me see what it is that I'm manipulating. Cool. That's pretty fun. Now you see if I hit randomize noise, because we introduced this glitch noise before, and that is adding to the ringing. We have a very nice ability to sort of change those smears. Let's pull it down a bit. All right, so that looks good. That's some pretty fun, wacky looking stuff. Let's zoom in and see what it looks like up close. Yeah, beautiful. Now, let's save that as a preset that I'm going to use later. I'll save it in the image folder. I'll call it Fractal Preset. I already had one there because I did this before. Yes, let's replace it. Great. So now, if we wanted to apply that effect to all the images we have over here, well then all we have to do is hit Batch Process. It's asking us to select the preset, Fractal Preset, the one I just made. Now it says, show me the folder where all the images are. You tell it the folder and it'll grab every image in that folder. And finally it's saying, where would you like me to save that? I'm going to save it in Fractal Fly Processed. I hit that. Nothing is happening. So you see the spinny wheel. Eventually I'll give it a progress bar or something. But if we look in Fractal Fly Processed, we can see, open up. Oh, gone from the wrong end, am I? Yes. Come here. We can see we've successfully processed the images within this video. Beautiful. What a beautiful thing. So that's going to keep chugging away. It's got about, God, how many? I don't know. I think it's got about 300 or 400 images that it needs to process. There we go. Batch processing complete. Good job. 250 process, 0 failed. Perfect. And we see in the Finder over here, that's where all those images are. So that's a great way to process images. To process video. Another thing let's take a look at is what happens if you stick enormous pictures in here. Well, because everything's happening on a bit of a pixel by pixel basis, at least for some of the effects, we get a little warning here. It says, warning, large images like this may slug the program. So, look, it's not too bad, but there are certain effects that if we do may take a little while. For example, ringing can take a while. So you can see, look, it is pretty responsive. But, you know, if you drag a 3000 by 3000 pixel image in here, come on, like, yeah, it's gonna take a little while to process something that big, which is part of the reason that the batch process is in there. Yeah, you can see it. Just having a slight slug here. It's not loving the Luma key. So yeah, that's why the batch process is here, because you can then use your effect, save your effect, your preset, sorry, using a smaller, similar image, and then process your larger images kind of without having to wait for them. Oh, hello, George. So that is Rat King Pugilist. It's going to be available very soon. Here comes George. Up you pop. Jump up, buddy. Thanks so much for checking this out. I'll have a link when it's available. Till next time, Rat King Pugilist, Cat full of Ghost Electronics, forever.